We're in the new podcast studio for another episode of the Warriors Heart podcast with our new COO, Drew LaBoon.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you being here, man.
Really excited to be here.
Yeah.
It's beautiful in here. I mean, this entire place is pretty incredible, man. Even to the light up Warriors filming sign out front.
Yeah,
it's
I
official.
love it. We had to have that because we had the podcast studio in the old Access One over there, and there was times when we had to stop filming to go outside and tell whoever was mowing the grass, "Hey, man, time out for a minute."
Yeah.
Because we were catching all that. Hopefully, we won't have those issues this time.
Yeah,
we'll see.
It's good to be here. My only gripe is they're tall chairs, and my legs go to sleep because I'm not a large man. So.
Yeah.
My shortness may interrupt some of this, but we'll do our best.
I almost want to ask, what's a normal size chair for you? But I'm thinking high chairs.
Not quite high chair. Let's see, those are too high.
Yeah,
my legs dangle. If you're looking like in a third grade classroom, those desks, that's pretty solid for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We can get you one of those for your office.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I remember correctly, you're 4'9"3/4.
5'5.5" on a confident day.
On a confident day.
Yeah, on a confident day. Otherwise, it's 5'5". Yeah.
But all jokes aside,
Yeah.
with that physical stature, your career and where you've been in life has been just fucking tremendous. Been awesome. Had a chance to hang out with you quite a bit last week while we were in Georgia at the We Care Vet Fair and the VRC and partner convening. Got to know each other a little bit more and know a little bit about your background. And that's what we're going to talk about here today, right? How that does not define us. Just like your height does not define you, neither does our background. And I mean that in a truly professional way,
It's
right?
true.
I learned a long time ago. I'm 6'2", or thereabouts. And I learned a long time ago, that don't mean shit. Never underestimate your opponent.
Yeah.
I've had guys half my size mop the floor with me,
Well, and part of the stigma we suffer under for years, definitely in the warrior community and the warrior community recovery, is I allow my successes and I think more so my failures to define me.
Right.
And that kept me stuck and sick for a long, long time. So I appreciate you saying that. And I think it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
My past definitely supports who I am today, good and bad, but it doesn't have to define who I am in my path in life. It doesn't.
Absolutely. And that's kind of the theme of what we're talking about today, right? Losing everything does not define who we are. It can either tear us apart or it can strengthen us. When I was in your office yesterday, the day before, you have that wooden plaque in there. I forget the exact quote, but basically has to do with your story becomes somebody else's survival guide, right? And I have that on a sticky note on my computer monitor. Been there for years. We can either choose to be embarrassed about it or we can use it to strengthen ourselves and others. But when we're strengthening others, that's when we're strengthening ourselves quite a bit.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's jump into that, man. Let's learn a little bit about who Drew LaBoon is, right? Let's start with, I suppose, your career. I know you got a little bit of a backstory as far as, your upbringing. Up to you if you want to jump into that, but let's talk about the guy that Drew LaBoon is.
Yeah. So, I think it's helpful to know and to hear. I know it is for me to hear stories, how people's background all the way back to the beginning, right? And me as a kid, if you looked at it on paper, you think I came from an amazing home. In a lot of ways, I did. But the home I grew up in, and you add me to it, right? Like I was always a high-strung kid. I was always running around, always going and doing things. I was loud. I was a little bit obnoxious kid. And so when you have parents that are leading and running a very strict, very strictly religious household, there's natural upset that occurs. There's natural butting of heads. And what I know today, and through working a program of recovery and some good clinical work, is that my parents loved me the best way they knew how. Right. But what that looked like for me was strict, often, usually overbearing. Back then, we didn't call it physical abuse. It was just being disciplined, right? And there was also some emotional abuse. And again, I don't, what I know today is my parents loved me the best way they knew how. They were really doing what they knew to try to raise me up to be a good kid and a good man. But with my natural personality, what that did is that it morphed me into this person that thought I had to earn love. I had to earn your approval, had to earn your appreciation. I need everyone to like me. Otherwise, there's going to be upset in the home. There's going to be upset in my life. And so, you fast forward, I didn't get into really much trouble as a kid. It wasn't for lack of trying. It wasn't because I didn't do troubling things. It was just because I was either pretty good at hiding it, or there was always someone or something there to catch me when I fell, and kind of protect me from a lot of the worst consequences. I learned to take a punch pretty young. Mm-hmm. Love to fight. You do learn to take a punch when you're the smallest kid in class and have a mouth the size I have. You're learning to get punched pretty early. My fist got hard, and I love to fight, and that's just kind of the way I grew up. I was an athlete. I played Pop Warner football, like in elementary school and middle school, and something happened between 6th and 7th grade. All the other boys grew, and I didn't. And so football quickly went by the wayside, but I played a lot of soccer. I was a competitive swimmer. And so I think having a focus and having some sports to play as a kid kept me out of too terrible a trouble, right? Because I went to school and kept my grades pretty good because I wanted to be able to participate in that stuff.
Right.
But there were some things that happened to me pretty young that shaped some of the behaviors I would have the rest of my life. It's not something that tough guys are supposed to talk about. It's not something that that men are supposed to go through or admit. But being a survivor of sexual assault as a young boy, not in my home. I like to be clear about that. It wasn't anybody in my home. But being a survivor of that, what I know today is that shaped a lot of the behaviors I had. It made me angry. It made me engage in a lot higher risk behaviors than I think the average kid would. And so for me, being an alcoholic today, right, and I know we'll fast forward to the rest of the story here in a little bit, but building up to it, I remember walking around just as such a high-strung kid, right? Like my shoulders are pinned to my ears all the time. I'm wound tight like a piano string, and it's like I can never fully exhale. And when I was 13 years old, I took my first drink. Mm-hmm. And we were sitting in a friend's basement on Thanksgiving. I remember it well. I don't remember why I was over at a friend's house on Thanksgiving, but I was. And my friend had swiped a bottle of wine from his parents. I think it was like display wine. It was not very good. And as we're passing around a circle, a couple of friends, all the other kids are complaining about how gross it is. It's so disgusting. And it was gross, but I don't remember that near as much as I remember. I took a big pull off the bottle. Bottle kept going around. It came to me a second time. I took another big pull. And we talk about in the 12-step program I work today, we talk about how the magic of alcohol took effect.
Right.
As it started to warm down my body and as it started to take effect on me, for the first time in my life, I was able to exhale. My shoulders kind of came down off of my ears, and I was able to, all of a sudden it didn't matter if I was tall enough. All of a sudden I didn't have to be funny enough. All of a sudden I had arrived, right? And so I spent a lot of years chasing that same way I felt, and that same way that alcohol made me feel, whether it was drink or other high-risk behaviors, right, and acting out a lot. So when I was close to graduating high school, I started to show interest in joining the military. Mm-hmm. And I was starting to be a bit of a knucklehead. I think my parents knew that had I gone to college right then, I would have failed out of college miserably, would have bombed out of school. And so it wasn't right for me. So at 17, I joined the Army. And I'm the classic, the recruiter gotcha guy. I wanted to be the guy on the video because back then they would go to your school, right, and you'd meet with them, and then they'd come over to your house and meet with you and your parents, and they'd put this old VHS tape in that showed these guys like rappelling down rock faces and shooting guns and coming out of the water with guns. And what's funny, and through a 17-year special operations career, what I learned is like everything that looks cool in the movies or on video sucks in real life. Like it's not as fun as it looks, but like that's what I wanted. I wanted to do that. And so I joined the Army. left off for basic training at Fort Benning, did the infantry course. It was a OSIT, one-stop unit training, one-station unit training. It's been a long time. I don't remember. Next month will be 10 years since I retired, and it's crazy to think about that. But then I went to airborne school, then I went to Ranger Indoctrination Program, and I started my career that way, and absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
But what's interesting for me is I was an alcoholic long before I was a full-blown raging alcoholic, right? So some of the literature of the recovery program I work today talks about we're restless, irritable, and discontented. Mm-hmm. What that looked like for me was I'm never happy where I am. I'm never good enough doing what I'm doing. So I can have this dream and this goal, and I can work towards that goal tirelessly. And when I achieve that, all of a sudden it's not enough anymore.
You got to keep going.
I got to keep going. I got to find the next thing that's bigger and better. And so that was absolutely held true in my military career as well. And it's funny because back then, and even still today in certain circles, right, in the military, in the professional world, we call that somebody that's hungry. Mm-hmm. They always want more. They want to excel. They want to do better. And I think there's truth to that. But I also think that what that does is it breeds a very sick person emotionally.
It does, because we feel like, and I still feel this to some degree, that I'm still working on in my own way, that if we don't have everything perfect, if we're not moving forward and everything is wonderful in life, that people are not going to love us and they're going to leave us.
Yep.
Right? It has to be just perfect, you know? It takes a while to get through that sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, and jumping back to the earlier part of your story, and that's something that we talk about quite often as ACEs, you know, adverse childhood experiences. Mm-hmm. On the investigative side, investigating child sex crimes, you know, I saw a lot of that with some of the victims that I would work, that their lives were spinning out of control. They were risky behavior, drinking, doing this and that as a negative coping mechanism for the trauma that they were experiencing. In our world, we talk about it from the standpoint of escaping that home life to find a new family. Mm-hmm. In law enforcement, in first responder, in military, et cetera. To get away from what was and to try to find that new family and that new purpose. Yeah. Right? Did that factor in any at all towards your decision to join the military, or were you just always gung-ho for the military from?
So I come from a long line. So two reasons. One, mm-hmm. I was always the black sheep in my family. I still am. Right. I'm the kid that didn't fit in, square peg in a round hole mm-hmm. type thing. But also I do come from a long line of military. I have great uncles who fought in World War I, right? Flanders Fields. I have bayonets on my bookshelf in my office that are from the Spanish-American War. My grandfather and my great uncle both fought in World War II. My grandfather was a Bataan Death March survivor, prisoner of war to 3.5 years to the Japanese. And so my great uncle fought his way through the European theater. My grandfather fought his way through the Pacific theater. So, and I'll talk more when we get to like the post-traumatic stress portion, more about my grandfather. But so, and then aunts and uncles, right? Like my dad's a veteran. Peacetime, post-Vietnam, he was finishing ROTC, and commissioned right after Vietnam. Aunts and uncles all served, on both sides of my family. My aunt was a GWAT veteran, has multiple deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan like me. My older brother served in the military. So, I mean, part of that was natural. We're a very patriotic family. And so that was one of the blessings that I was given. One of the good things in my home was raised, for God and country. And then you add to it, I never really fit in there. To swear in my home growing up was like a capital offense.
Really?
So to be in a place where I get to shoot guns, I'm preparing for war, and it's like not such a serious thing. Like it's okay for me to say fuck, was crazy to me growing up. And so I was instantly at home. And that brotherhood in that community, that's a huge piece, right? And
absolutely.
And the way that shaped my future going forward, and especially, and I'll get to it here in a bit, but the way that shaped my post-military fall was huge. But that brotherhood, I was instantly in love with it. And it's funny how the military can take the worst possible thing you're doing and somehow make it fun because you're with your brothers, right? And I was sisters as well. I just happen to always be in units with men, so the brotherhood for me. But yeah, and then we joke today still. We were doing something earlier this week. I don't remember what we were doing here at work, and I was like, God, why does everything turn into a team week event? Like, this sucks. But then we're just out there joking and embracing it, and it ends up okay. And I craved that. I didn't have that as a kid, but when I had it, all of a sudden I had it in the military. I was like, okay, these guys are around me are good enough. I'm good enough as long as I'm as good as my last operation. Right. If I'm performing, if I'm executing, if I'm a good teammate, like, that's it. None of that other stuff matters to anybody. And I craved that. I didn't know it when I was a kid, but I craved it.
Now, I will give one point of clarification real quick for our younger listeners, especially for Haley over here. A VHS tape was about that size, right? It was for a VCR, video cassette recorder. It was before CDs and DVDs. Cool?
What our listeners don't know is that there's an ongoing thing, and our outstanding tech team behind the cameras are a different generation than you and I.
Very different generation. And she reminds me all the time of how old and bald I am, and glasses and hearing aids and everything else. So,
bald is beautiful.
Bald is beautiful. Yes,
yeah.
She's amazing in her job. Our media team is fantastic.
They are,
but we have that good banter.
Yeah,
she was raised up in this lifestyle with Josh and everything, so. Yeah, she gets it.
Well, it's one of the things I love about Warriors Heart, and I know we'll get there in a while too, but yeah, that banter, the human side, stay goofy is one of our core values, and I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I personify that as best I can.
Yeah.
All the time. So, but jumping back into the military, let me ask you this. You didn't want to be just, the grunt, just the infantryman. Did you want to go straight to the top? What was your aspirations when you joined up?
Yeah, like I said, I didn't. So my aspirations change, right? They're toward what my aspirations are born out of not feeling like I'm enough no matter what I'm doing, right? So being in the 75th, right? I loved it there, but I was quickly anxious. I quickly wanted to do other things. And so then I start seeking other units and what I view as cooler, bigger, better units under the special operations umbrella. And one of the things I know is that no matter how high up I went in those units, spending years working with and in and being part of tier 1 units, I'm still not enough.
Right.
No matter what. And when you get to the top and there's not really any place else to go, I do my best to love what I'm doing, but still I'm restless. And there's like this weird period of time where, oh yeah, it's new, and it's amazing, but then eventually like the novelty wears off and the things that used to excite me before suddenly don't anymore.
Right.
Getting adrenaline, getting any type of excitement and buzz out of what I'm doing just doesn't do it, which brings higher risk behavior. And in the military, they give you medals for that stuff and say you're awesome. When really, I have a chest full of medals, and a lot of them were for doing things that, well, my grandmother certainly would say were stupid, but the military says are heroic. And so it continues to fan the flames of this guy that I do bigger and better things. I do crazier and more risky things. And it's not just okay, it's celebrated.
Yeah. And then somehow or another, our identity in life is just tied to that. It's tied to the performance. It's tied to the medals. It's tied to the uniform.
Yep.
And that clout in a way.
Yep.
Everybody warns us against that, but somehow or another, not for everybody, but somehow or another, it becomes part of us, our identity. It definitely happened to me, and we're going to kind of transition into that here in a minute. But when it came to your actual role, now, correct me if I'm wrong, you said you went to Ranger Regiment. I believe you said that, right?
Yeah.
And then you transitioned into DevGru.
So I went to I went into the PSYOP course.
SIOP, that's right.
In under the Special Operations umbrella, which is one of the smallest regiments of Special Operations. Actually, it's a really, I didn't know if I'd like it at first. That's kind of where I landed after trying several different things. And so the thing that was cool about the PSYOP course is I had the opportunity to support and work in and operate with a number of different Special Operations units. Special Forces ODAs, Naval Special Warfare, Ranger Regiment, and through all different, I spent a lot of time with Naval Special Warfare, at all different levels, and I loved it. Man, those guys treated me great. I never went in there trying to be, I went in there trying to be the very best PSYOP guy I could be, and support those operations, and it was just a beautiful career for me. I loved it. I think that's what settled me down a little bit is the chance to work with all different units under the SOF umbrella. Is I was constantly getting to go do something new and exciting, and there's a steep learning curve when you're new, especially an Army guy going to Naval Special Warfare. There is a very steep learning curve, and so it's pretty incredible getting to be out on the ground in the gunfights, getting to do all the exciting stuff. Was great until it wasn't. I got to a point where I started to get pretty numb toward that stuff. It's funny when you're young and dumb and you're first going to war and you're in those gunfights, the things you remember are like your tunnel, you get tunnel vision. Training takes over, sympathetic motor function, and you don't realize a ton of it after. You don't remember a ton of it. So you're out doing these post-operation AARs, you're breaking down the work you did, and pretty quickly you that wears off. The official term, we call it stress inoculation. You get so inoculated with stress that all of a sudden the same gunfight anymore doesn't have the same effect. And so, which leads to chasing bigger thrills and engaging in crazier behavior for sure for me.
And did that transition into your personal life? You know, from chasing those thrills in military life, did it also transition into your personal life?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, it definitely did. I burned 2 marriages to the ground.
Right.
The first one was 23 years old, platinum blonde, beautiful, and married after 4 months of dating, like the typical junior enlisted Army guy thing to do. So it was a shocker to me, not to anyone else around me, that that didn't work out. We burned that to the ground. My second marriage, I was a little more seasoned. It was toward the end of my career. She was an incredible woman, still is to this day, good woman. But I burned that to the ground, drinking, lying, just being a sick alcoholic with post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury, all the things that create just a monster to live with. And so, yeah, it came out of my personal life. And then when I'm single, I'm living wild. I'm doing all the crazy stuff, and it's getting worse and worse and worse, and I'm a ticking time bomb.
Yeah. So we're going to transition into, not the Drew that I know isn't all about the military part of it. I mean, you're in a leadership position here, and that's kind of the focus, transitioning from that to where we are now, because that identity does not define who you are. Neither does my past. It is a part of it, but it is not completely defining it, right? So we're going to kind of talk about that exit, I guess, from the military and into the position that you're in now. But just, a few key points from the military career. How did those leadership lessons transition into the life now?
So I think there are 2 big ones, right? First one is, everything we do, we try to do by, with, and through.
Right.
When you're deployed and downrange, it's like by, with, and through a host nation. It's by, with, and through a partner force. And so I still carry that today, right? Like by, with, and through the teams on the ground, teams that are here. But also, right, like when I'm in a leadership position, I'm leading troops or I'm leading people here at work, like I'm only as good as the people under my charge, right? And so in the military, it looks like, am I taking care of my guys? Am I taking care of my troops? Are we doing the things that we need to do to be able to be the very best we can be? Are we investing back in our people? Are we working on personal development and professional development? Are we doing all those things? Those are the biggest leadership takeaways I had that I still use a lot today, every day here.
Yeah. But at some point, we got to take the uniform off and be a civilian again, right? Now, a quick funny story that you told me, right? Speaking of uniform, one of your commanders said something to you about your uniform and asked you if you got them at Build-A-Bear Workshop or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a guy at one time ask me, "You shopping at Build-A-Bear?" I was like, "Thanks, man. That's great." Yeah.
That's our type of humor, though.
Yeah, it is.
Good-natured ball busting in a variety of ways.
Well,
right?
It's really funny picking on the little guy until there's a lot of stuff in the military in general, but definitely in the special operations world, we end up in cramped, tight spaces. Mm-hmm. And so frequently, that's when I'd be able to get my revenge. Like, how you feeling over there? We're smashed in the back of a tiny vehicle or an aircraft, and so it serves its purpose.
Right.
Yeah.
Good-natured humor. We're a little goofy here. I'm glad we can joke about that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
But yeah, at some point the uniform has to come off. We got to transition to civilian life, but it's not always easy for a lot of us. My transition from that it wasn't by choice. I was terminated. They took everything from me, which hurt a lot. What was your exit from the military like?
Mine was very similar.
Yeah.
I've been blown up twice. I've been shot. I've been multiple concussions, blast injuries, demo charges from breaching, shoulder fire rockets. Like, my brain has had a lot of damage to it. Mm-hmm. And toward the end of my military career, I started to have like these weird symptoms they couldn't explain. Docs used to say that it was my post-traumatic stress symptoms. And I remember my wife at the time, my second wife, the good one.
The good one.
The good one. They used to say these post-traumatic stress symptoms. And she said, this is not his post-traumatic stress. Like, I know what his post-traumatic stress looks like. Mm-hmm. That's not what this is. I'd go into this, medical world calls it a fugue state. Essentially, I get very, very confused. I don't know who I am. I don't know where I am. She used to have videos of it where it would look like I'm like a 5-year-old. Mm-hmm. I would ask her over and over again, like, where are we? What are we doing? What's going on? And she'd just, we're just going to go see her parents at the time, worked at a hospital. She'd say, we're just going to go see mom and dad. I'd say, okay. She's loaded me in the car, taking me to the ER because she didn't know what's wrong. And so that combined with my body was pretty broken. Mm-hmm. I've had 4 elbow surgeries and neck surgery. I did a lot of steroids my time in the military. So I had gynecomastia surgery. Like, when it came clear that they were going to medically retire me at 17 years, it was, okay, let's try to fix him as best we can. But what they didn't know and they didn't diagnose was the traumatic brain injury. Mm-hmm. And so my symptoms started getting worse and worse as I'm going through the retirement process. I had 8 surgeries my last 10 months, different parts of my body, trying to put me back together. So I spent that last almost year in the military on narcotic pain medications. Oof. And endless supply back then. And I don't think these doctors are evil. I just don't think they knew and understood fully what we understand today. But I would call the surgeon and say, hey, I'm having a lot of breakthrough pain. It's really hurting. And he'd write me another 30-day script of high-powered meds. Yeah, it was hurting, but also I ate a 30-day script in 5 days. And so I got pretty hooked on pain meds. And then if the side of the pill bottle says, don't consume alcohol with this med, well, to me, you just gave me the recipe, right? Like, hell yeah,
make it a hell of a lot better.
Hell yeah, it's going to make it even better. And so I started to struggle with substance abuse pretty quick.
Right.
And as far as like you related, they took it away from you, it was over. I had some strong resentments toward Department of Defense.
Yeah.
as a whole, because I felt like in the military you use the term DX, meaning there's a broken tool, you discard it and get a brand new one. That's what I felt. I felt I'm broken, I'm banged up. You spend millions of dollars training me. You send me all around the world to fight our nation's enemies, and you can't tell me what's wrong with me. And all you're telling me is you can't stay here, but we don't care where you go. Nobody ever told me that directly, but that's what I heard. And that's the way I felt. And
that's what it feels like.
100%.
You know, every single time that happens, that's what it feels like. And you think of the capital investment that they put in the individual soldier, in the individual law enforcement officer, et cetera, how much money they have invested in that person. And then just to throw that away, okay, let's get a new one in here.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I tell people when I'm working with them in admissions, you know, I can't come in because of my job. Brother, your job is going to be posted before your obituary.
Yep.
Trust me. They will throw you away and get a new one very fast. So let's focus on you. And if the military, first responder agencies had a more compassion towards that, things might be a little bit different. And that's starting to change in a lot of ways, but not 100%. But what we went through was exactly that. Throw it away, get a new one, right? And the feeling that creates in us is just horrendous. Now, at Warrior's Heart, we do a lot of projects like the Tomahawk Project that is centered around that. The Kintsugi Bowls, you know, in the art room is centered around that. It's broken, but it isn't going to be thrown away. It can be fixed and put back into service and be beautiful and useful again, right? But it's difficult when you're going through it, especially when they're throwing a lot of pills at you.
Yeah.
And that doesn't help the cognitive abilities at all, does it?
No, it makes it worse. And so going through the retirement process, I ended up back in Boston living with my wife at the time. And these symptoms were getting worse and worse. In fact, I went to treatment the first time pretty soon after retirement, within a couple of months, because I very quickly was abusing pain medications, and I was drinking pretty quickly, just about 24 hours a day. Every waking moment I had a drink in my hand. I was doing some defense contracting, some executive protection stuff, asset protection, and I was drinking on the job, going around the United States with concealed firearms, going around foreign countries with concealed firearms. And it was crazy that I never killed myself or somebody else wrongly. And so I went to treatment the first time. It's funny, the lies we tell ourselves. We talk about how we're delusional as alcoholics, as people struggling with any substance. I finished this 28-day treatment program, and my wife at the time, she comes to pick me up, and we decide to go get this steak dinner to celebrate this grand achievement of me staying sober for 28 days in a rehab. And I order a drink. And she looks at me, she says, are you sure you should be doing that? Like, is that okay? And I said, it's okay. They taught me how to drink responsibly. Nice. And the crazy thing is, like, I actually believed that. I thought that was true, right? Because I went through that entire treatment episode looking at the differences between everybody else and me. It was a civilian program. So I walked in there with my chest puffed up like I walk on water. I'm better than all these people. I used to look at the drug addicts in the room in that treatment center like, you losers. Why can't you get your lives together? I'm just here because I drink a little too much. I need to get that under control. And if you're listening or watching and that pisses you off, just give us another minute. We'll get to the rest of my story.
Oh, yeah.
Calling drug addicts losers. But so I order a drink with dinner, and what happened to me is probably the worst thing that could happen to a newly sober person. And that's, I was okay that night. I had 2 drinks with dinner, and I was good. And so what that reinforced the delusion in my brain that, man, there's people in that treatment center, man, that's not true. That's not me, right? I'm not like all those other folks in there. But within a couple of weeks, I'm drinking around the clock again. It takes off again.
Yeah. You talk about your background in PsyOps. This disease is a massive PsyOp.
It really is.
You know, all the time telling you, you're not like those people. You're better than. One drink ain't going to hurt you. You got this shit under control. You can drink responsibly. Yeah. Along with the other negative side effects of the disease is you're worthless, you're a piece of shit, you're no good, because that will come eventually. right? That psyop of our brain is fighting ourselves. The hardest enemy that we have ever battled is ourselves.
Yep.
That battle in our mind is harder than any fight we've ever had before. And it begins with just like that. I'm okay. I can drink responsibly. I can have this one drink and be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't stay out of my own way.
Right.
In every single way, I can't stay out of my own way.
Yeah. I do want to ask something real quick, though. Did you have any plans after the military? While you were in the military, you knew it was going to end at some point, just didn't know when. Did you want to transition to something else, some other career field, or to take what you had learned and stay in the community in some way or another? Did you have something lined up for just in case, or was it just completely open?
So I had to finish my degree. I knew I had to finish my degree. I really wanted to go work in the intelligence community, work for one of a 3-letter agency.
I got you.
Somewhere. And I barely finished my degree, my undergrad in sociology, because I was drinking so much. Barely finished that. And pretty quickly, I did realize, though, that I don't want to do, I don't want to go work for an intelligence agency.
Yeah.
Like, I spent my entire adult life up until that point watching over my shoulder for somebody to shoot me or kill me.
Yeah.
And that was tiring to me, as much as I loved the thrill. Getting out and being a civilian for a little while, I was like, I don't know if I want to do that the rest of my life. And so when that fell apart, when I decided I didn't want to do that anymore, I had no idea what I wanted to do. But I was so close to finishing the degree. I just finished it, and then started this endless round of treatment centers and detoxes. Right, get out of treatment that first time. Went to detox, did a little spin dry, came back out, start drinking again. I was still abusing prescription pain meds at the time pretty bad. And I had a buddy who he would get prescribed the ones I really liked, and I got prescribed the ones he really liked. And so we would trade. And I was over at his house one day, and he's like, dude, have you ever shot up one of these pills? And I was like, no. Is it cool? And he's like, it's amazing. And so I'm sitting on my friend's bathtub with a needle in my arm. One of the rainbow signs here is a perfect runway for this vein. And I stick it in, and I'm shooting it up. And that thought I had of how terrible I was to the drug addicts in rehab came back, and I was like, my God, how did I get here?
Because our brain tells us it's prescribed by a doctor. It's okay.
Yeah.
I need this. I was telling myself that same fucking lie, but I was going through 90 Percocet 10s in 2 weeks.
What's not prescribed by the doctor is to cook it in a spoon and stick it in your vein.
Yeah, I don't think any doctor prescribes that.
That's the first time, though, that I realized, like, this might be a problem.
Yeah.
Like, this might not be good. And yeah, I burned it down for another 3 years, though. Like, even me realizing that, all of a sudden, like, oh my God, I'm one of the drug addicts.
Yeah.
This is a big, big fucking problem now. And it wasn't enough to get me sober. It wasn't enough to scare me. And so a couple more detoxes. I ended up in another treatment center, this amazing treatment center in Groton, Connecticut, right outside the sub base. This was one that did a military track. So you're still mixed in with civilians a lot. Does a military track. It helped me. It was pretty good. They sent me to a VA domiciliary when I finished that program. This is the longest period of sobriety I had before I started drinking again. And I was out at this VA dom out in San Diego, and drinking more and more, living off of, or I started drinking in there because there were some guys there after being sober for 4 or 5 months that we went to, they used to get free tickets to Padres baseball. Well, the only reason you go to, if there are any Padres fans, like, get over it. Your team's terrible. But the only reason you go to Padres baseball game is to drink, because they're not good at baseball. And we went to a Padres game, and they're ordering beers. And they're like, yeah, it's not a big deal. We just have a couple. And then if we get breathalyzed when we get back, like, we can pass the breathalyzer. And I was like, okay. And I started drinking, and then I started getting good ideas. See, that's part of my problem. I talked about I can't stay out of my own way. What initiates really getting in my own way for me is I start getting good ideas. I start thinking, I know what I need to do. I know what I can do. I know how I can do what I want to do and beat the game, right? Um, Alcoholism and substance abuse and mental health are the first things in my life I was ever faced that I couldn't tighten up my bootstraps and tough my way through. I had managed to work through my frustrations, get comfortable being uncomfortable, doing all the tough things and tough training for God and country, all the deployments. And for the first time, I found something that I couldn't beat, and my brain didn't know how to process that. In the meantime, I still have this wild traumatic brain injury that is just completely out of control that they still haven't diagnosed. So I end up, at this VA dom, they start to think maybe there's a problem here, but they still, the VA just did a poor job of getting me in front of the right doctors that could diagnose that. And so there's this foundation in Boston that's, it's called the Red Sox Foundation. And they partner with Massachusetts General Hospital, and they do free care for veterans, for warriors, the global war on terror vets. And it's a lot of mental health care, post-traumatic stress. They have neuropsych and addiction doctors there. But I went in for an intake thinking I was going for PTS. And this psychiatrist took one look at me and was like, have you ever had blast injuries? And I was like, yeah, like my whole career. I got blown off a rooftop in 2009, and there's like a 4-day blank spot in my memory because the concussion was so severe. Like, yeah, I've had that. And they got me to the Red Sox Foundation and hooked me up to the long-term monitoring and all this stuff. And this crazy thing is some of my darkest moments, right? I remember going to the VA when they were struggling, couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I'd go to all these appointments. I had an appointment every day. It seemed like 3 or 4 appointments a week at least, trying to figure out what was going on with me. And it's an old habit. Something I still do today is carry concealed everywhere I go. Obviously not in a treatment center when you're around,
Of course,
clients,
not here. Yeah.
but everywhere else. And I did then too. And so I remember I would leave my appointments and I would sit in my car with a bottle of whiskey, Jameson, and a pistol in my hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I would sit and drink in the back of the parking lot, bouncing the pistol off my temple, thinking, I can't go on like this. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm scared. Nobody knows what's wrong with me, and I can't continue like this, and I don't know what I'm going to do. And the only thing that kept me from blowing my brains out in that car is I was there so much that the little old lady that was the parking lot attendant at the time, she reminded me of my grandmother. And I was there so much, we kind of developed a little relationship. And I remember thinking, that woman's not going to find me in my car. I'm not going to do that to her. And so it just continued to get worse. And they finally got me, the Red Sox Foundation finally got me diagnosed with a traumatic brain injury. They started me through some of the cognitive therapies and stuff and got my seizure disorder appropriately medicated. But I'm still drinking around the clock, and I was never the angry or violent drunk.
Mm-hmm.
I was the guy that I would lock myself in my office and drink at home and drink with a pistol on my desk. And my wife at the time, the good one, until now I've got the better one. Want to make that real clear.
We're going to point that out at some point.
Yeah. We'll get there. Mm-hmm. And she truly is in every way. But she was scared to death that she was going to come home and find that I blew my brains out.
Yeah.
And we'd only been married a couple of years, and she was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And she dropped me off at the psych ward of the VA and filed for divorce. It's probably been a bad night when you wake up in the psych ward of the VA hospital. Like the paper pajamas, the grippy socks, the plastic furniture, the whole nine. There's a guy across the hall that's like finger painting with poo on the wall and shit. And I'm going, I don't belong here. Like, I should not be here. And I'm telling the nurses like that. I'm telling the nurses, like, I don't belong here. And they're like, yeah, honey, nobody does. And hand me another little cup of pills to take. And so I was wildly over medicated for mental health, and I wasn't getting any real help. Meanwhile, I'm still trying to hold a job. At this point, I'm dabbling in EMS a little bit. I went and got my advanced EMT certification, and but I didn't like that. What I was doing, and in every career I went into, and every job I dabbled in, what I was trying to do is replicate my experience in the military. See, I had no identity outside of military service. I had no identity outside of a special operations world. And all of a sudden, I felt like I had lost my family, the only true family that accepted me that I ever knew. And so everything I tried to do, every workforce I ever went into had something to do with that. Small team, brotherhood, the shit talking, the banter. That's all I ever knew. And so I was still trying to hold on to that piece of my identity because I was walking around with this delusion that I want my old life back.
Yeah.
And the reality is for me, and what I know today, is that my old life was terrible. Yes, I did some great things for God and country. I got to serve with some of our most tremendous nation's heroes. But when it comes to personally, emotionally, spiritually, the things that I depend on today to have a quality life and be a man of principled action, I was completely and totally bankrupt my entire life. I had no idea how to live life in a spiritual, principled way. And so I'm circling the drain fast. I remember one morning waking up and I am giving up my morning offering to the porcelain gods, right? Calling dinosaurs down into the...
Selling Buicks.
Yeah. And I've got the shakes and I've got the sweats and I had the thought. And remember, I'd already been to 2 different residential treatments, detox like another 4 times. And I realize I'm not sick because I drank too much. I'm sick because I haven't had enough to drink. Like, this is really, really bad. This is not a hangover anymore. These are withdrawals.
This is dependence.
Yep. And my very next thought in my crazy alcoholic brain is 7-Eleven will open up in about 20 minutes. I can go down there and get a couple of tall boys, and I'll be okay. They'll take the edge off so I can function today. So I would wake up and I'd have to drink an entire pint of Jameson before I could even get out of bed to function. And then I started doing a lot of cocaine. You know, we joked that cocaine is Narcan for alcoholics long before Narcan was for opiate addicts, right? So I started mixing a lot of Coke with my drinking, and I'm essentially unemployed and unemployable. I had jobs here and there. I switched jobs so much because when I'd realize they're starting to get wise to me, and they're starting to realize, like, this guy's got a problem. I never got fired. I just quit going. I just quit going to work. I'd never show up again and not answer any phone calls and find a new job. And I was floating around, bouncing around, and it got more and more problematic every day. And so this is fast forward, we're in 2019 now, right? And I went through another bad breakup. I was homeless. I thought I'm living this sexy Spartan lifestyle, right? Like, I don't need anything to tie me down. I'm staying with friends, or I'm living with a girlfriend, or or something. And I didn't know it, but I'm homeless. Like, I have no place to stay. And I went through another bad breakup, and I really had no place else to go. I had brothers that I had been on multiple deployments with that told me, like, dude, you're not welcome at the house anymore.
Yeah.
You can't come over here. And I wasn't the angry drunk that'd break your shit. I was a drunk that, like, if the barbecue starts at 6, I'm going to come over at 5 and I'm going to bring some booze and we'll pregame a little bit and I'll help you light the grill, but I'm blacked out on your couch at 5:30.
Right.
And one of my buddies, my buddy Jake, came to me and was like, dude, like, my wife said you can't come over anymore. She's tired of making weird excuses to her friends that are also over on, oh, we're just going to get him up to the guest room so he can sleep it off. He went through a bad divorce, right? Or he's got post-traumatic, like she had used up all the excuses she could make for me. And she was finally like, listen, we love Drew, but he's not welcome here anymore until he sobers up. And I'd burned every bridge, man. No friends would answer my phone call anymore. No, I didn't have any real friends. every friend I had, I either was trying to get something out of them or they were trying to get something out of me. And in the back of my mind, the entire time, I'm going, how did I go from the spirit tip of freedom with this ethos, this creed, these things I was taught to live by to this?
It's a hard fall.
Hero to zero.
Yeah.
Yep.
You swore you'd never be like that, but then there you are.
Yeah.
Now, and going back for just a moment to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
suicidal ideations, right? You know, I've been there myself, you know, sitting in my office watching those dash cam videos, you know, the shootings and whatnot, just drinking, pistol, you know, suicidal ideations. One thing I try to point out to people as best I can, when you're in that state, it's not you that you want to kill. It's that part of you that wants to die that you're trying to kill, that you want to kill.
Yeah.
And you can do that without killing yourself, right? Which is what we're transitioning into, right? But it is an important transition. Yeah, it's a low point. It's the darkest days that you can ever imagine, but it's not the end. In a lot of ways, it's the beginning,
Yeah.
right? And now we're at the real beginning of who Drew is, right?
Yeah.
So you're at that absolute low point. What was there any catalyst that made you say, all right, that's it, I'm done. I gotta get serious about this shit at this point? Or was it just your own self-realization?
Yeah. Well, let me go back to the suicide thing first, and then
Sure.
and I'll get there. My last year and a half or so in the military, there were 6 suicides from guys in the regiment, a couple of guys in my same squadron that I knew very, very well.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. I used to blame them and think, you took like the coward's way out.
Right.
How could you possibly do that? And then you fast forward to my own struggle with suicidal ideation, with having a plan I just couldn't execute and all that. What I know today is that I thought I would be doing my family a favor.
Yeah.
I'm such a loser. I'm such a shitbag. I'm struggling with all this stuff that really I'm doing them a service and getting out of their hair.
Everybody always says it's a coward way out, but if you have
not.
ever been in that spot,
Yep.
it is completely the opposite. You're trying to spare them the suffering that you're going through, trying to rid them of your existence because you know it's so shitty or you feel that it's so shitty.
Yep.
It's not a coward's way out. You're trying to do a service for somebody else. It's a fucked up way of thinking of things,
Yeah.
but that is exactly the way that it is.
But we're sick.
Yeah.
We're so sick that we actually believe that.
That PSYOP has reached its
Yep.
its ultimate goal of taking your ass out. You know, when those demons are fighting back, they are trying to prevent you from getting on that road to recovery.
Yeah.
And they will do and say everything they can to take your ass out. And when you're at that point, you're believing that lie.
Yeah. 100%. I'm
Yeah.
buying my own bullshit.
Right.
And it's a really scary place to be. And we see it everywhere that comes through our gates. In one way or another is buying their own bullshit.
Yeah.
We have to help pull them out of that. So what happened for me, right? What the catalyst was is I went through another bad breakup, summer of 2019. I spent a few weeks staying with like acquaintances, but that would wear off when I was out of drugs and when I was out of cocaine, or I couldn't buy booze anymore because I was waiting for my retirement disability to hit for the next month. And so I'd have to move on and find another friend, and slept in my car a few times. And in the meantime, I had reconnected with a cousin of mine who, when I was a kid, when I was little, we were very close. She was kind of my protector. Because again, remember, I was that loud, rambunctious, obnoxious kid. And she always kind of protected me a little bit, and would always do things with me when the rest of the cousins were sick of listening to me. And so I'd reconnected with her on Facebook. We would message back and forth till all hours of the night. And it's funny, it's one of those where I don't remember like ending the conversation, but I'd wake up in the morning and look at our messages and it starts to turn into gibberish, my messages to her. And so she knew that I probably wasn't doing real great, but she didn't know how bad it had gotten. I hadn't seen her or my auntie in 25 years, and they live in Norman, Oklahoma. And I told her one day, I was like, I'm going to come see you guys. Want to come hang out? The reality is they were the last family I had on earth that would answer the phone for me, that would talk to me anymore. I had burned every bridge. And so, but in my delusional brain, I'm thinking, I'm going to go on a road trip. That's what I need. I need a vacation. I need a road trip, and I'll be able to get control of my drinking. So I drove across the country, nonstop, drinking the entire way, snorting cocaine off my phone. I drove across the country in a blackout. I remember one stop because I had to go in to a truck stop bathroom and cut up more cocaine so that I could keep snorting coke and make it all the way to Oklahoma. And I get to Norman, and I'm still under this delusion that I'm just going to go visit some family for a while and then keep on this road trip and go. I'm like, I'm going to drive back out to California, just the crazy stuff that we tell ourselves. And I get to Oklahoma, and within an hour or so, I had every liquor store within like a 5-mile radius of her house mapped out. I knew what time they opened, and I knew the back roads to get there because I hadn't driven sober in 3 years.
Yeah.
I don't know how I never got a DUI. Even worse, I don't know how I didn't kill somebody driving. And mind you, remember, I had told myself, if I just get out of town for a while, I'll go on a little road trip, I'll figure out how to get control of my drinking. I'm in Oklahoma. I'm visiting with my cousin and my aunt. And my drinking didn't get better. It got worse. At this point, I'm drinking 3 liters of Jameson a day, 24 hours a day. There's not a time that goes by that I don't have a drink in my hand. And I'm snorting up $200-$300 of cocaine a day. When my nose would get so numb I can't snort it anymore, I'm shooting it because I got to get it in my body so I can continue to drink. And I'm in Oklahoma probably a week and a half or so, and like good Irish Catholics that live in Oklahoma, the routine on Friday night is we go to mass, go to the 5 p.m. mass, and then there's this little diner that we go get a burger, and then we go to the casino.
Yeah.
Like good Irish Catholics. And I remember pounding a pint of whiskey on our way out the door, and we're about 40 minutes into mass, and I'm already starting to get the shakes because I haven't had a drink. And I'm sitting there, and I hadn't been to mass in years. Didn't feel worthy. Grew up in a religiously dogmatic home. God to me was punitive, punishing. And I'm sitting in mass, and I don't even remember what the homily was. I don't remember what was said. But I remember sitting there, and the thought crossed my mind that you're going to die. If you don't stop this, you're going to die. And then the next thought was, it's not going to be today. It's going to be another 25 years, and you really are going to be completely and totally alone. And you're going to have nobody left. And the ego still shows up in those moments. My next thought after that is there's no cool way to tell my story. There's no cool way to be buried with heroes in Arlington National Cemetery, which is where I want to be buried. There's no way to be put in the ground there knowing you drank yourself to death. And what I know today is that was the first sincere prayer I'd ever uttered. Is I can't do this. Help me. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm scared. I'm tired of being angry. And I think there's several things that made it possible for me to be in that place. First is I landed in a very loving, non-judgmental place. My cousin and my auntie saved my life because they didn't look at a drunk and an alcoholic. They looked at a kid that was sick, and they never said a word about it. Now my auntie tells me now that I was pretty close to her saying something about it, but she knew that it had to be my choice, my decision. I'd been to treatment before. They didn't know that. But we get out of mass, and we get to the car, and I turn to them and I say, I got to tell you guys something. And they're like, what's up? And I was like, I'm not okay. Like, I'm not good. And I don't know if I want to drink myself to death or if I want to blow my brains out, but like, I'm not good. And I think I need to get some help. And my cousin, or my auntie, told me, she said, you were about one more day from me saying something to you. But I knew it had to be your choice. And then she said something that pushed me, and still does to this day. My uncle struggled with mental health and substance abuse. Her life partner struggled with mental health and substance abuse for years. And she looked me dead in the face, and she said, I lost one man to this disease. I won't lose another.
That's powerful.
Get yourself right. And I called the National Alcohol Hotline. They gave me a list of 3 or 4 places in Oklahoma that took TRICARE. And I ended up a couple of days later out in a treatment center out on a ranch in Oklahoma. It's a 90-day program. I needed longer term. It took me 30 days before I could walk straight. It's funny. I look back at my old notes from rehab because I still have my old notebook. And for my first week or so, like my writing is like you can't even read it. It looks like chicken scratch. And then you see, like as the weeks go by, my handwriting gets a little bit better because I don't have the shakes anymore. I'm yellow. I should send a picture to put on I should give you guys my detox picture when my cousin dropped me off to put as somewhere in the notes of this podcast. So you see like the before and after. But I was dying of alcoholism. And so my cousin drove me and dropped me off. The 2-hour ride to the detox center was the longest I had been without a drink in over a year and a half. And I could hardly walk when I got into detox. Went into detoxed and then went to the treatment center. And I remember sitting down. Remember, this is not my first rodeo. Like the millions of dollars the VA and Department of Defense spent on mental health help for me, all the traumatic brain injury stuff. Like, I know what to say to a clinician. And it's funny because we see it here all the time. And I've told some of the warriors before, like, are you giving the check at the block answers? Like, you know what to say to graduate from here, right? Like, how about you start getting real? And I was sitting down with my clinician doing my intake and all that. And I start launching into like all my combat traumas and all that, because that's what I was used to them always asking me. And she goes, whoa, hang on. We're going to get there. Let's go back to your childhood. And it's the first time anybody had ever asked me about that. You know, complex post-traumatic stress is traumatic experiences compounding, building on each other throughout your life, right? And it's so important to go back to those early years because every piece of complex trauma that happens, I push further and further down, right? Until I am literally walking around a ticking time bomb. And so she asked me, she said, let's go back to childhood. Let's talk about some of that. And it was the first time, you know, words matter and words have meaning. It was the first time I got honest about, I said, she kind of drew it out of me. She's a real savvy clinician. She said, we were talking about it. She goes, what happened to you as a kid? It was the first time I got honest, and I referred to myself as a victim of sexual assault as a child at the hands of a scoutmaster. And she let me get away with it at that point. As we start to process it and do some EMDR on some of that traumatic experience, she asked me one day, she said, don't you think it's about time and it's about ready for you to cross over from victim to survivor? When are you going to do that? And what she laid out for me was this healing journey. Another thing she asked me, she goes, who are you? And I started to recite, I'm, you know, retired special operator, you know, paratrooper, I'm doing all these things. I start to recite to her. And she says, no. That's what you did. Who are you? She had me read this book by Trent Shelton. It's called The Greatest You. And he goes through his journey of being a pro football player and having a career-ending injury, turning to pills, and all he ever knew was football. And so he had no identity outside of that. So I could relate to that. And what she had me start to do was write down the values that you have, write down the character traits that you have that made you an outstanding special operator. What made you good at what you do? And let's focus on that.
Yeah.
And so I had things like, I'm loyal. I'm a good teammate. I'm honest. I work hard. I'm never going to quit. I'm going to make my mission. You're going to kill me or I'm going to die trying, right? Like all these things that made me really good at what I did, I start to learn that that's who I am.
Yeah.
That's what made me good in my career and what I do. And so, man, I get to the end of night. Yeah.
just
I get going, man. You got to
you
interrupt
do,
me.
yeah. But I didn't want to stop you because you're covering such good ground. That victim to survivor mentality is an important transition just as much as our identity. You know, what we tell ourselves, who we are. Yeah, I'm this hard charger. I'm this special operations guy. No, that's who you that's what you did in your career, but that's not who you are. But that victim to survivor standpoint is an act of letting go. It's an act of surrendering. I heard it put a different way in the rooms of AA before when it come to working on resentments, right? And at first when I heard it, I was like, oh, it sounds pretty fucked up. But it was a lot of truth to it, right? The sponsor was challenging the newcomer on that exactly, holding resentment against the person that sexually abused him. And when we talk about resentments, what part did we have to play in that resentment? Obviously, no part. You were a victim. You were a child, right? But the sponsor challenged the newcomer from the standpoint of, okay, yeah, it happened, but you're still holding on to it and you're not getting any help. You own the responsibility in that. So at some point, you have to let go and get some help, right? Yeah. And that's how you transition from victim to survivor. You want to keep it a secret because maybe you're embarrassed, or you don't want to talk about it. You think nobody else is ever going to understand, or they're going to judge you. But in this place and all the other rooms that I've been in where men talk about this kind of stuff, and women for that matter, talk about this kind of stuff, nobody judges them. A lot of times you hear, yeah, man, I went through that same shit. And here's how I got through it. And that's how we grow. That's how we transition from victim to survivor. And we start transitioning from, this is the person I was, but that uniform is gone. Now I need to become somebody else, right? Mm-hmm. That's how we do it.
I was a victim in every aspect of my life.
Yeah.
If you told me I was being a victim back then, I'd probably punch you in the face.
Yeah.
But I was a victim of multiple combat deployments. I was a victim of the DOD because you're gone now. You're broken. I was a victim of things that happened to me as a child, and you're absolutely right? Like, what's my part in that? As far as it happening to me, absolutely nothing. Mm-hmm. But my part is today is that I'm still living in that victim mentality.
Right. And in some of the other affiliate programs that we have, Warrior Path, for example, they talk a lot about post-traumatic growth. You know, Josh Goldberg was at this event we were at last week, and they touched on that a little bit. When I went to Warrior Path, it was mind-blowing, you know, turning that struggle into strength, you know, flipping the script on, our training becomes hypervigilance, and that's a dirty word with PTSD, but we can turn that back around to being just situationally aware, you know, turning the struggle industry, the post-traumatic growth, which is where we're heading with this, right? Using that for good instead of letting it tear you down.
The book talks about we do not wish to close the door on the past. We do not regret the past or wish to close the door on it.
Right.
And so now today, the reason I talk about it, what makes me a survivor, is willing to use all of those experiences, no matter how painful, to help the next guy.
Yeah. And there's real strength in that. Everybody has that same thought process. I'm weak if I ask for help. I'm weak if I talk about these things. Oh, shit, man. Be on the other side of it and see how much strength it takes. Mm-hmm. You'll see a real badass that can sit down in a chair and talk about these kind of things. Man, that's real strength right there. Mm-hmm. Real strength.
Well, the path to do that has been paved long before me.
Oh, absolutely.
Just following the example of those in front of me, man. And I think that's what we do here, right? Is mm-hmm. in recovery in general, is we seek to give back. We hang on the coattails of the guys in front of us until we're pulled out of it. And then we reach back and pull somebody else out.
And one other thing, as we continue on with your story, it took you like 3 weeks for the fog to clear, your handwriting to get better and everything else. You know, people ask, why do we got to go 6 weeks at Warrior's Heart? And the studies show those first couple of weeks, man, you ain't absorbing shit. You're coming out of that fog. You're getting rid of the substances. It takes that amount of time. But how much are you really willing to invest? For your career, you did every damn thing they told you to do. You went to multiple trainings for months at a time. But when it comes to healing yourself and becoming the best version of yourself possible, how much are you really willing to commit?
Yeah.
But you committed that, right? It was that 90-day program. So let's jump back into that part of it as things began to, as the air began to clear and you began to take a breath again. Working on the childhood trauma, you know, we could talk about military trauma all day long. I mean, everybody's got that from their prior service, but the childhood trauma and then how everything kind of compounded and how you finally began to come to terms with that. What were the therapies that you used? You mentioned EMDR. What else were you doing in that treatment center?
Well, they do a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy. There are a
Yeah.
lot of in vivo experiences, right? Like in real life, teach me how to live sober. I actually spent 109 days at that treatment center. I used to say it's because I'm on the accelerated program. No, man, I was getting to the end of 90 days, and I remember going to them and saying, I'm not ready to leave yet. And it's not because I feel safe here. It's because I'm in the middle of processing some things, some moral injury with my clinician, and I know what's going to happen if I leave here midway through that.
Yeah.
I'm going to get sent off to another VA doctor, another VA clinician, and nothing against the VA clinicians. Every clinician I've ever had at the VA has been outstanding. Every doctor I've ever had at the VA has been outstanding. It's getting to the doctor that
Right.
is the maddening process. But I told him, I said, I've been through this before, and if I leave here midway through processing this stuff, I'm not gonna be honest with them. I'm not gonna be able to do that. Can I stay here and finish this stuff out? And I remember looking that executive director in the face, saying, I don't want to die. I don't have another sobering up in me, and I've got to get it right this time because I am done. I am completely and totally worn out. And I lay all this out thinking I'm gonna have to argue with her. And she's like, no, please, good. Yeah. Like, you can stay. So I stayed and finished that stuff out. And all the things that I swore I wouldn't do, I ended up doing. One of those is sober living. I used to think I'm too good for sober living. I don't need that. It's, halfway house, all that. I'm better than all that. I remember I was 3 weeks into treatment, and I went to my clinician and I said, hey, can I get on Zillow? I'm going to be out of treatment here in a couple of months, and I want to find a place to live. I still got a VA mortgage I can use. Can I look for a house to buy? She looks at me. She's like, sir, how many times have you been in treatment in the last few years? And I was like, well, a few. She goes, you still about half a lizard. How about you take your ass to group? And she's right, man. I was still a lizard person, still shaking, right? And I'm going, that's the delusion, right? That's how I'm still understanding. And they tell me, you need to go to sober living. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. And they said, you said you're willing to do anything when you come in here, and you said you don't want to die.
The big book kind of addresses that. Feeling better, looking better, talking better.
Yeah.
And we laugh at such a Sally.
Yeah.
Because we know what's about to fucking come. Real quick, I tell people all the time, it took a while to get this fucked up. It's going to take a while to get unfucked, right? You can't accomplish that in 28 days and be that perfect person. That's the starting point. You can't accomplish it in 6 weeks, 42 days here. That's the starting point. The real work begins when you exit there. So investing in yourself in sober living, PHP programs, PATH programs, whatever else is out there, that's where the real work begins, right?
Yeah, it really is. And I've got to get to where, and I think it happens in the life of every alcoholic. We see it for warriors that come in here. Certainly it's been my experience that, the book talks about we cease fighting anyone and anything. The number one thing I had to stop fighting was myself.
Yeah.
I talk about getting out of my own way, right? And I have to stop bargaining and negotiating and saying, oh, well, I know what's best for me. I know what I need to do. That's the scariest thing a new person in recovery can say is, I know what I need to do.
Our best thinking of practices got us right to the front door of that fucking rehab.
And when I hear guys say that here, I'm like, we're going to keep your bed warm for you. And we hope you make it back, because you have start getting those good ideas, man. And it gets to be problematic. And so I get out of treatment and I go straight into sober living, something I swore I'd never do. I get into sober living. I start working a 12-step recovery program. My sponsor tells me one day, I remember sitting down with him when I asked him to sponsor me, and he said, okay, well, you're going to make 3 basic commitments for me. One is you're going to call me every single day. You're not going to send me an email. You're not going to send me a text message, not a smoke signal, nothing. You are going to call me every single day. The second thing is you're always going to be honest with me. You're not going to be able to do that. So when you screw that up, you're going to revert back to number 1. You're going to call me every day. And the third thing is, when I tell you to do something, you're going to do it. And we're not going to have it going back and forth about it. If you want to understand the why, I'll always explain that to you. But the reality is I don't make suggestions. I don't give life advice. I give direction based on my experience, both in life and with the principles of this program. Can you do those things? And I said, yeah, roger that. He said, okay.
Let me ask real quick. Was he a military guy?
No.
First responder? Nothing, right? Which is an important thing, right?
Yep.
Because I hear it all the damn time. I was talking to somebody the other day. They want to have somebody that's just like them. No, that ain't supposed to be your best fucking friend. It ain't supposed to be your drinking buddy or anything else. It's going to be somebody that's going to challenge you. And you don't have to have somebody that 100% fits your background to walk you through that program. In fact, it's quite the opposite.
Yeah. Well, and the things that I tell guys all the time, if you're looking for a sponsor, the 3 things you need to check with them is, one is, do they have time for you? Are they going to be able to make time to sit down with you, to take your calls, to talk you through things? 2 is, can you trust them? Are they going to be a vault of the information that you tell them? Because you're going to share with them all your bedwetting and booger eating, man. You're going to tell them all your crazy stuff. And so I need to be able to share things with my sponsor, and I don't want to go to a meeting across town and hear somebody talking about it.
Right. So
that's the second thing. And the third thing is I need them to have experience in these things. I need them to know the big book and be able to take me through that book, because that's where the life-saving magic is, right? And so the identity piece we talk about a lot early in recovery, and the most important piece of identity that we need to have is I need to know, what I need to know is that he drank like I drank. I need to know that he drugged like I drugged. I need to know that he burned his life to the ground the way I did. Not in the exact same storyline. Don't need that. But I need to know that he's been through those things, because that way when he's telling me what I need to do to change my life, things that I don't want to do, that aren't natural for me, that go against who I thought I was, I revert back to, okay, well, he's been there. He's walked this path. Okay, I'll give that a try.
He's got the capital.
Yep. We started so he told me, he goes, okay, man, we're going to start a 30-day trial run. Money back guarantee. You know, it's free. So and that was a 30-day trial run that this September will be 7 years ago. So we're still on a 30-day trial run. But one of the things he told me is all right, you're in sober living. You're not going to sit here and live off of your retirement and disability. You need to find a job. It doesn't have to be your forever job, but you're going to find a job. You're going to start working that job. You're going to go to work. You're going to stay at work, and you're going to work at work. Those are 3 things that I didn't excel at when I was drinking.
Right.
So I ended up getting this job with this company that does online sales. It was a sales job. I'm good at sales. I can be good at sales, but I fucking hate it. But I was selling like online credit card processing, HR software, stuff like that. And I showed up to work. I stayed at work. I worked at work. And I was honest at work. When they would go to dinner and stuff after, I was real honest. I had to be honest that, listen, I'm an alcoholic and I'm newly sober. I'm going to come, but I'm not. So when you see me drinking, that's why. I'm not drinking. Sorry. No, when you see me not drinking,
yeah.
That's why I'm not drinking, is because you're not going to like what happens when I start drinking. And meanwhile, at the same time, like I'm working through the steps of the program. You know, I'm sitting down with my sponsor. I'm working on my inventory. I'm doing the things he's telling me to do. He says, I remember one time he called me. He goes, what are you doing? This is before I started working. He said, what are you doing Saturday about 3 p.m.? And I was like, well, I don't know. I don't think anything. He goes, yeah, I know you're not doing anything. You're unemployed and living in a sober house. Be at my house in a shirt and a tie. I said, I don't have a tie. He goes, do you have a collared shirt? I said, yeah. And he goes, I've got a tie. Be at my house at 3 o'clock. What are we doing? He goes, you are going to be at my house at 3 o'clock. I'm like, okay, roger that. So I get to his house and he gives me a tie. And we end up getting in the car, driving halfway across the state, because he's giving an AA talk across the state. And so the most powerful thing I learned is the most important meetings are usually before and after. Right in a car with these. I remember I was in a car with 3 attorneys, a guy who had just gotten out of prison. He was in a drunken fight and had killed somebody. Right? Shit. So it's like a manslaughter thing. I'm in a car with this guy who just got out of prison, and then just a blue-collar trades guy. And we're riding in the car, and I'm hearing these attorneys who I put them on a pedestal, like they're these smart, educated, professional guys, and they're telling stories about when they're drinking, not war stories to glamorize it, but experience stories. And I'm going, these guys are insane, man. Like, they're as bad as I was. A couple of them maybe worse. But I remember it made it okay for me to have been, not currently being, but have been that scumbag. It made it okay for me.
This disease affects everybody, all walks of life.
Yep.
Yeah.
It does. And so I'm starting to take the steps. I do my inventory. I sit down with him during that inventory and share with him all the difficult, challenging things and work on through, turn over my character defects. I start to make amends, the amends process. And you fast forward, I'm 9-10 months sober, somewhere in there. And I've got a little date. Tell my sponsor about it. He knows. My house manager, the program director of the sober house, knows that I'm going on this little date. We talked through it. I remember telling him, Cliff, I want to find somewhere that doesn't have alcohol. And he goes, well, unless you take her to fucking McDonald's, everywhere has alcohol, right? And he showed me in the book where it talks about if we have good reason to be somewhere and we're spiritually fit, we don't need to worry about it. We don't need to be afraid of that. I was like, yeah, okay, Roger. And so I had him on. We don't really have speed dial on our phones. We're dating ourselves with speed dial, but I was prepared to call him, and I was honest about what I was doing. And sitting there on this date, and the server walks by for the date was a bust. She's crazier than I was. Not the cool kind of crazy either. And I'm pretty crazy. And so the server walks by with some drinks on the tray and asks us if we need anything else. And I smelled whiskey for the first time. And I remember thinking, man, I'm glad I don't have to live that way anymore. And it freaked me out. Whoa. Because I realized I hadn't thought about drinking in 9 or 10 months. Finish the day, and I get to my truck, and I call my sponsor. It's like 11:30 at night. And he answers the phone real quick. What's going on? And I was like, Cliff, I hadn't thought about drinking in like 10 months. He goes, I think that's the fucking point. Like,
Yeah.
I thought something was wrong. Call me and tell me about your victories in the morning. Click, and hung up on me. And the next day I go over to his house and we start breaking it down. And, if you had asked me honestly when I first entered the rooms of 12-Step Fellowship, if you'd asked me honestly why I was there, and I had answered you honestly, I'd have probably told you, I don't know. I've got no place else to go. Somebody told me this was a good idea. I did not enter the rooms to get sober, I don't think. I entered the rooms because I had no place else to go.
Yeah.
And then this miracle happens where by doing the things that's directed me to do, by taking the steps and by getting involved in a recovery program, I learned how to get out of my own way.
Mm-hmm.
I learned how to stop tripping over my own feet. I learned how to stop giving in to good ideas. And then you fast forward months down the road, and I hadn't thought about drinking in 10 months. I was drinking 3 liters of Jameson a day. I hadn't drawn a sober breath in over 3 years. And all of a sudden, I hadn't thought about drinking. And I think that's when I went all in for recovery, right? I went all in and said, okay, there's something special to this, man. And we talk about in the rooms, we talk about we have this spiritual awakening, right? We have these spiritual experiences of the educational variety, right? Little areas where my life is better today than it was a day, a week, a month, a year ago. And these spiritual experiences of the educational variety where I see God moving in my life that I can't explain lead to that spiritual awakening. I cannot explain why a guy like me who's drinking 3 liters of Jameson a day that wants to die goes to, all of a sudden I hadn't thought about drinking and I think about other people more than I think about myself.
Yeah.
That's not a victory I get to claim. That's not something I can create, right? I used to think I need material things. I need titles. I need all this stuff to learn to be happy. The happiest I had ever been in my life. I remember calling my sponsor one day. This is probably 6 months sober. So, oh, by the way, like COVID was just starting to, I was about a year sober when COVID really started to get gnarly.
Mm-hmm.
And so COVID's starting to be a thing, but not really. And so I'm sitting in the sober house and I'm talking to my sponsor and I'm like, dude, I feel weird. And he goes, well, describe to me feeling weird. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't worry about stuff. I don't like, and I'm describing everything to him. And he goes, do you think that you might be happy? And I was like,
Which is a foreign feeling to
foreign
us.
thing to me.
Yeah.
And what I was experiencing was that the first time in my life, I'm okay exactly where I am.
Yeah.
I'm better than okay. I'm at peace exactly where I am. The promises in the book talk about that we will learn to understand the word serenity, comprehend the word serenity, and know peace.
No peace.
Right. And so for the first time, like I'm okay. I'm enough. And I'm in a sober house where there's one guy in the kitchen that the only spice he knows to cook with is garlic. So it reeks of garlic. I'm smelling this guy's socks over here. I've got this guy over here being a total weirdo, and I'm happy and I'm okay. And, one of the things that recovery has done for me as well, the rooms have done for me is, a lot of guys come in here. I was one of them that have real problems with God. When I was first getting sober, you started talking about me about God. Like I was probably going to start talking about your mom, like miss me with all that God stuff. And I remember first sitting down with my sponsor, and he asked me, how are you on the God thing? And I start to recite to him everything I'd ever learned in Sunday school, everything I learned through confirmation classes, just all this stuff. Like I graduated from a Jesuit college, right? Like I had some church and I started to recite to him all that stuff. And he looks at me and he goes, how's that been working out for you? And I didn't know if I wanted to cry and hug him or if I wanted to flip the table and run out. I was like, hugging obviously not very well because I'm sitting here in the Dunkin' Donuts talking to you. Mm-hmm. And he said, okay, well, we're going to set all of that just right over here. We're not going to get rid of it. We're just going to set it right over here. And what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you a question. Do you believe that what I'm doing is working for me? I said, well, sure seems like it. You're coming up on 20 years sober. You got a pretty good life. It seems like it. And he goes, do you believe that what I'm doing can work for you? And in that moment, I broke, man. I said, I fucking hope. Because I got nothing left. Like, I'm out of good ideas. I've tried everything I know to do to try to live a happy, sober life. And so what he said is, okay, well, we're going to help you undefine God and focus on a higher power. And so he said, you just said that you hope that what I'm doing can work for you. And so what we're going to do is, that higher power idea, that's something that can do something for you in your life that you've never been able to do for yourself.
Yeah.
So you said you think the program can work for you. So for a little while here, we're going to make your higher power the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, the fellowship of the men around you, sponsorship. Now, not that I'm praying to the program or praying to a sponsor. That's not it at all. But what I'm doing is I'm depending on and relying on that program to do something in my life that I've never been able to do for myself.
Right.
And that's learn to be happy. And I said, okay, that's enough. And then you fast forward, and I remember I was asked to give a little talk one time on step 2, came to believe that a power greater than me could restore me to sanity. And I'm up there, and I'm probably 3 or 4 months sober, and it's a little 5-minute talk at the beginning of a meeting. And I'm talking about God and the things God's done in my life. And I sit down, and my sponsor leans over and he goes, how's God treating you? And I was like, shut up. Because it was, I started to have those little spiritual experiences of the educational variety where things are happening in my life. My life is getting better, and I'm not meaning to. I'm just doing what I'm asked to do. And my life is getting better. The obsession to drink alcohol and use drugs has been removed. The self-centeredness has been stayed. Not perfect. I still think about myself a lot. I'm an alcoholic, right? I love the sound of my own voice.
Right.
I'm my own biggest fan type thing. Mm-hmm. But what I've learned is to put it in context.
Yeah.
Right. To get me right-sized. That's what God and the program has done, is help keep me right-sized so that no matter my title, no matter my job, no matter what I do, I'm using my story, my experience, my talents, and the gifts that God has given me to better the lives of those around me. How am I being of service? And sometimes service is just a smile. Sometimes service is how you doing. Sometimes service is just a real conversation with somebody else and being sincere and genuine that maybe in this world and in recovery, they've never really experienced before, or they didn't realize it in a way that they do now. It can be a
real
powerful
connection.
thing.
Yeah. You said something earlier about you just, wanted to get back to who you were. And it's something that a lot of us say, especially when we're coming into these rooms and into this world. We just want to get back to what we were, right? Mm-hmm. But that's our thinking. That's us being in control. And that is such a limiting mindset. I remember having that realization when I was here, right, inpatient, that I just wanted to get back to who I was. And then at some point I realized, oh man, I could be so much better than that.
Yeah.
But when we have that mindset of, this is what I want that marriage restored. I want that job back. I want that life back. We're boxing God in. We're not giving ourselves up to the higher power to let him work through us for his good. We're boxing him in. And what we imagine for ourselves is so limiting, considering what God can do for us, which is so fucking powerful and so much bigger, right?
Yeah.
I think about that a lot, of what I wanted versus what God has done in my life since then. And when we surrender ourselves to that, we got to surrender to win, which is hard for people like us.
Yeah.
You know, we have to surrender. But when we surrender, then God can work through us. And man, the sky's the limit.
Yeah. It's turning our lives. So in the steps talk about made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand them. Mm-hmm. Well, for me, that was pretty easy. When they asked me, are you ready to do that? I was like, dude, my old life is a dumpster fire. Like, you can have that shit. It was terrible, right? And that's hard for guys like us because we think, oh, I was this barrel-chested freedom fighter, right? Like all these great things I've done for God and country. I come in with this delusion that I want my old life back. My old life, even when I was doing well, morally, emotionally, spiritually, I was bankrupt and a scumbag.
Absolutely.
And so, and I tell guys in here all the time, like, we're not here to help you get your old life back. Your old life is what got you here.
Right.
We'll help you to get a better life.
Yeah.
Right. That has all those skills and talents and all the things that made you good at what you do. But if you're here to get your old life back, you're in the wrong place. Right. Because your old life, your old thinking, your old way of being is what got you to where you are. And so what we're here to do is help you unpack that and help you be better and different and new. That whole idea of reborn that sounds so cliche, but it's absolutely real. I had a realization first getting sober. It was really hard for me, and it freaked me out a little bit when I first realized it, is, you know, all of the cool guy stuff I ever got to do, all the great things for God and country. If that's the high point of my life, what the hell am I doing for the next 30 or 40 years?
Right.
Right. How am I going to continue to ascend? How am I going to continue to grow and be better today than I was yesterday and the week before? Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all those things. That's what we're here to do. And I think that's the point of recovery. And hopefully, whether you're in recovery or not, that should be the point of life, right? Is to be better.
So jumping back into that spiritual aspect of it, one of the things from the big book is, you know, we're rocketed into the next dimension of human existence, which is something that we crave. You know, we wanted that old life, but we're boxing ourselves in because we could be so much better then. How did you get from alcoholic addict to COO of Warriors Heart, the nation's #1 healing center? How did you get from there to here? Because you got sober in 2019, right? And that's just 7 years ago.
Yeah, coming up on.
Yeah. How'd you get there from there rather?
Yeah, that's a fun story. Simply put, I did it by learning to get out of my own way.
Yeah.
You know, the life I have today is pretty incredible as long as I stay out of it.
Yeah.
Right. So I was a little under a year sober, and I got a call one day. I remember I'm still working that job where I'm selling online credit card processing and stuff. And I get a call from the old executive director of that treatment center that I went to. And she said, hey, man, I want to see if you want to come out and interview for an admissions job. And I was like, are you sure? You guys literally know all of my bullshit. Like, you know, all of my crazy. She said, yeah, but we also see what recovery does in your life. And I remember calling my sponsor saying, hey, I got called to go interview for this job. And he goes, oh, I think that'd be a good thing. And it's funny because it's one that if you had told me, you know, back in my pipe hitting days that I'm going to go work in substance abuse treatment, again, I'd probably punch you in the face. Like, right. Whatever.
Fucking bullshit.
That's stupid. Mm-hmm. So I go out and interview, and I'm getting the job. And then I had this experience. See, recovery is cool because there are a lot of firsts, right? This is my first time that I was going to have to quit a job, resign a position the right way. And my sponsor had me do a lot of things. First thing he had me do is he gave me a couple of guys' numbers to call who worked in the treatment industry, but made working in recovery their recovery program, and had relapsed over it.
Yeah, which is an important thing,
It's
right?
huge, right? I can't make the work I do here my recovery. I still have to be every bit as involved, sometimes more so, in my own recovery program. And so I talked through that, and I learned that. And then I remember going to my boss at the job I was working in, and I told her, they knew I was in recovery. I'd been honest about that. And I said, I have an opportunity to go back and work at the treatment center that I went to. And they were so supportive. It was really cool being honest with her about it. It's funny with that. You fast forward like 6 months, she called me one night, and her husband was a veteran. And the opportunities I get, because I'm honest about who I am and what I do now, is she called me one night and is like, my husband can't quit drinking, and I'm worried about him. He's been sleeping in the garage. And I got to go over and do like an old school 12-step call with that guy. I got to go over and tell him about my drinking and and help lead him. I don't know if he's sober today, but I took him to a few meetings. But I go out and I start working in admissions at that treatment center. And within a few months, I became the admission director, kind of rewrote the admission program, what it looks like, had a team working under me. And we didn't have anybody doing business development at the time. And they were interviewing like these MBAs and all these high-powered folks, and nothing wrong with having an MBA, but I remember getting a little irritated with them. I said, nobody's going to sell this place like me. It saved my life. Like, let me go do it. And so they're like, okay, what do you know about business development? I was like, I know how to talk about the place that saved my life. And so they said, okay, you can do the job. And then I was like, oh shit, where do I start? And so just jumping in, man, and I'm a guy that figures stuff out, right? Like you give me a mission, you tell me what I need to do, I'm going to find a way to make it work. And so I started doing business development, and then I was the director of business development and admissions, and working out there. And I got a call one day from the owner at the time. He said, what are you doing next Tuesday? And I was like, you've never called my phone before, so probably whatever you tell me I'm about to be doing. And he goes, okay, I'm going to book your flight. We're going to go to Florida. I'm looking at a new facility to buy. I was like, okay. And so we fly out there, we meet. I'm driving the rental car. The weather conversation's over. Hey, how's it in New York? How is it in Oklahoma? Blah, blah, blah. And I said, hey, can I ask you a question? Because we get through like the initial. He goes, yeah, sure. I said, first off, let me back up. Let me reintroduce myself, right? Like, I'm the type of guy that if I think it, you're going to hear it, love it or hate it. I try to put it professionally these days. But I'm going to tell you like what I think and what I feel. And he goes, I've gathered that. I'm surrounded by yes men, so I appreciate that. And I said, okay, why the hell am I here? Like, it doesn't make sense to me on paper why you're having the director of admissions and outreach at one of the treatment centers fly with you to look at an acquisition. And he goes, well, I don't really know. I just know you know treatment centers now, and I 100% believe that if this is a bad idea, you're going to tell me. And I was like, yeah, okay, I can do that. Well, we went on that visit, and it was terrible. The facility was gross that we were going to buy. And so anyway, I started traveling with him once a month, every other month. He'd book my flights, and I'd go with him to look at another acquisition. And we'd have these long conversations about what the organization needed. And they just terminated a COO, the old COO. And he asked, what we're missing. I said, we're missing leadership and we're missing vision. And he said, do you think you're that leader? And I told him, no, I don't. And believe me when I say that no one was more surprised at my no answer than me.
Was that a self-confidence issue?
I broke it down with my sponsor after, because I called my sponsor and I was like, dude, I just told him no about this. And he goes, well, let's talk about that. We kind of did a little inventory on it. And really what it was is, I talked about how the program, God helps me get right-sized. I told him no because I said the things I don't know about this industry outweigh what I do. And I don't want to take a position that I think I could be a liability to the organization. Mm-hmm. So maybe it was a little self-confidence, a little belief, but really in reality, it was also true. Like, what I don't know outweigh what I do. And he said, okay. But over the next 3 or 4 months, he started handing me and giving me more organizational level stuff to do. like, he's like, hey, I need this policy looked at. Go look at this policy, rewrite this policy. Hey, we need a new executive director at the Kansas City facility. I want you to help find somebody, interview him, talk to him, see if they're any good before you connect me with them, kind of vet them. Cool, got it. Hey, we've got this issue. Can you go over to this facility and help figure this out, operational stuff? And this was going on several months. Meantime, I still am fully employed as the director of admissions and outreach. And I remember one time I was in Dallas and I was racing from a networking meeting in Dallas over to Fort Worth to speak to a students in recovery program. I'm sitting in a parking lot midway through. I'm running late for that meeting. I'm running a VOB, working in admission, and also I'm getting calls about a problem at another facility I'm supposed to be going to, and I'm like at my wit's end. I can handle a lot of stress, but I'm like, I can't, like, this is insane. I literally cannot do everything. And I'm sitting with my sponsor. And I'm like, dude, I can't, like, this is, the next week.
a lot.
I'm like, I can't keep up with everything. Like, if I'm trying to do everything, something is going to slip, right? I can't be a master of all things. And so he looked at me and he said, why do you think he's giving you all that stuff to do? And I was like, I don't know. And he goes, maybe to see if you can figure it out. Maybe to see if you see that you can figure stuff out. And I was like, okay. So we're on another trip a few weeks later. We're sitting in the Little Rock, Arkansas airport. I remember it. We're sitting in the Little Rock airport waiting on, I'm flying back to Oklahoma City. He's flying back to New York. And we're talking about things. And I said, hey, you remember that conversation we had a few months ago? And I told you no. He goes, yeah. I said, I changed my mind. He goes, I thought you would. And went up to the counter, rebooked my flight. I flew to New York with him. Sat for 3 days. He said, okay, I want you to write up the plan, what you're going to do. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll figure it out. And then him and the other shareholders, the other board members, met, presented that to him. They promoted me. I was the director of operations for the entire organization for like 4 or 5 months. And then I was promoted to chief operating officer for the entire organization. And in that time, like when I took over, there was no strategic business plan. Like I don't have an MBA, but I figured out, I self-taught how to write a strategic business plan. I taught how to write, how to come up with 1, 3, 5-year goals. A lot of that was natural for me because in the military in general, and definitely in special operations world, right? Like we back plan. I've got this end mission I need to meet. What do I need to do to get there? Okay, here's what I got to do today to get there. And wrote all that stuff and just working away, man. We were able to scale that organization nationally. We were able to add 3 new facilities to it. Did a lot of other industry-specific stuff like bring billing and utilization review in-house that is a nightmare. I didn't know anything about that, but I figured it out, right? And so I'm just running and gunning, man, and loving it, right? And I've known Josh and Tom for years, 2 of the founders here at Warriors Heart, and I get a call one day, probably 6 months ago or so at this point, from a recruiter that I'd worked with at my previous organization. She calls me one day and she goes, Drew, I think I've got an opportunity you might be interested in. And I was like, yeah, I really doubt that. Because I'd gotten those calls before offering a lot of money, but I just wasn't interested. I think we're building an empire in my old organization. And, and then to back up, meanwhile, I had recently married the love of my life today.
Can't leave that out.
I can't leave that out. And
Right.
because really, that woman is what makes it possible for me to do the things I do today.
Mm-hmm.
She's my strength behind closed doors. When I doubt myself, she's there to remind me and share with me who she sees me as. And I wouldn't be able to do what I do today without her. And that comes into play here in a sec. I got that call from a recruiter, and she said, I think I got an opportunity to be interested in. And I said, yeah, I really doubt that. She goes, you've heard of Warriors Heart. And I was like, Of course I've heard of Warrior. Everybody's heard of Warrior's Heart, right? Like it's the premier warrior treatment program in the world. Yes, I've heard of Warrior's Heart. She goes, well, they're looking for a COO. And I was like, yeah, okay. So I sent my resume. They sent it in, and they sent it over. And it's funny, the CEO of that recruiting firm called me. And he was like, who are you? And I was like, what? He goes, who are you? And I was like, Drew. He goes, getting response back from Josh Lannon like is not often an immediate thing. He called me within 10 minutes of getting your resume. And I was like, oh, I've known those guys for a few years. In fact, it's funny, go back a few years, I actually got on several calls with Josh and Tom to help kind of work through some of the struggles they were having with payers and help talk through that stuff because I'd been through it before. So I already had, some of that relationship with them. And so we get on an interview, and I'd never met the other two founders, their wives, Lisa and Lori. And it's funny because the Spooners and the Lannons like are so different, but so the same and so unified to create this just incredible organization. And my first experience with it was on that interview. Them and then HR. The first question HR asked me is, why Warrior's Heart? And I responded, why not Warrior's Heart? What do you mean, why Warrior's Heart? Like, you guys know who Warrior's Heart. And then she said, well, who is Warrior's Heart to you? And I hadn't been down here and toured and visited yet. And I said, Warrior's Heart stands in the gap for our sickest warriors and makes it okay to not be okay. Like, I know Warrior's Heart well. I had sent guys, friends of mine, down to Warrior's Heart when I was at my previous organization. Like, cats, and we took veterans at my organization. But I knew, like, hey, this dude needs the warrior community. I'd sent referrals down here. And then she asked me, she goes, what are you going to do with your nonprofit and your consulting firm? I was like, I'll shut them down tomorrow. Right? Like, Warrior's Heart would get everything for me. And the interview was scheduled, I think, for 30 minutes, and we talked for like an hour and a half. The wives grilled me because I'd never met them before. And so they said, what are next steps for you? And I said, well, for me, right, like, obviously, husbands and wives are very involved in this. And I think that's incredible. That's beautiful. You all have built this incredible organization. I said, next step for me is I'm getting my wife and we're coming down and we need to tour. And I want you all to meet her. I need you all to see the support I get behind closed doors. And I want her, she's got to have equal buy-in to this thing. If I'm going to leave where I am to start out on a new thing. And they were kind of like, yeah, okay. And so I flew down with my wife. It was like March or something. And we get down here and we get picked up at the airport in a Warrior's Heart vehicle. And I was like, that's pretty cool. Warrior's Heart branded vehicles. We get out on site and we get here probably 9 p.m. and we're dropped off at one of the cabins. And kind of my nightly routine usually is get done with my nightly stuff and I'll grab a cigar and like I leave my phone in the house and I go out and I smoke a cigar and kind of decompress for the day. And we get in, we get our luggage inside. I'm like, I'm going to do my night thing. Wife's like, great. Thankfully, I've got an incredible woman that actually kind of likes the smell of cigar smoke on me. And I'm like, talk about a unicorn. It's funny about Mindy is I used to always joke and say that my kryptonite is 5'2", red hair, blue eyes, tattoos, foul mouth. And when I met Mindy, I remember turning to my buddy and I was like, my kryptonite. And he's like, I already know, dude, red hair, blue eyes, which is the most rare genetic combination. She really is incredible for me. And we get here and I'm like, I'm going out to do my night thing. And I get outside of one of the cabins here and light up my cigar and like I feel it in the ground.
Yeah.
Hadn't even been on a tour yet. Hadn't even been, for one thing, even setting foot on property like speaks to my warrior soul. We go through the gate. There's a gate guard there. We go through the gate. Not that we're keeping people in, but we're creating a safe environment for our warriors. Like that speaks to me. I understand that. We get into the gate and we get to the cabin and then I feel it in the earth. That it's not just a piece of land. Like it is warrior's heart. And I'm out there smoking a cigar, and she comes out with me, and she's quiet. She goes, "How are you?" And I was like, "You feel it?" She goes, "I feel it through you." I'm like, this is it. Hadn't even started the tour yet. So then wake up the next morning, and we get the full tour of things, and then she goes off and does some things. I think she ended up back at the kennels because we love dog. We got 4 dogs at home, and so when she found out there's a dog program, she's like, "I'm just going to go back to the kennels. You go talk to founders." And so I went in, and it was another couple of hours of essentially an interview. I got to ask a lot more questions. One of the things I asked them is, why a COO now? Why like a true COO for Warriors Heart now? Like you founders have been chipping in different roles and been doing this job. Like, why that? And I remember Josh told me, he pointed to the VTO on the board where the vision is to bring 1 million warriors home. He goes, "I can't do that with 2 facilities. We have plans and goals to grow." And I'm looking at the board, and it says have 5 facilities in the next 10 years. And I pointed to it, and I said, "Why 10 years?" He said, "Because we haven't found the right person that knows how to do that, that's figured that out." And I said, "Well, you have now, because I figured it out." And so we ended that. It was a beautiful couple of days down here touring. And then one of the things Josh and Tom told me is, they said, we it's not that we don't believe you, right? Of course, we believe you, but we really we want to come and see what you've built there. We want to see it. We want to feel it.
It's that vetting process.
Yeah, it's that vetting process, and
which is important in our world.
Yeah, well, and what I know now is they wanted to meet some of the staff and check the culture, because the culture here at Warriors Heart is very intentional, and it's very specific, and it's very, very strong. And that's always a risk you run when you bring out an outside person, is how are they going to fit into this culture? Do their cultural values, is where they're coming from, is that aligned enough that it's going to complement as they learn the Warriors way, right? And that was made very clear to me from the beginning. And so they came up and they saw what we built there with the team up in Oklahoma City and across the Midwest. And then had an offer a few weeks later, and started here May 11th. And it has been so far the most incredible, rewarding experience of my life. When I talked earlier about, all the great things I've done for God and country, right? What am I going to do to continue to ascend? Being here and being part of the team, right? Being with the Warriors. One of the things I did when I came and toured is I asked them, we were at dinner, finished dinner. They going home, and we were coming back to the cabin. I asked them, I was like, "Hey, is it cool?" Because one of the amazing things we do here at Warriors Heart is the fire pit. The fire stays burning 24 hours a day. Mm-hmm. I've seen our staff out there in what looks like a fucking hurricane, keeping the fire going, right? And the idea is a warrior can always find their way home. They're always welcomed by the fire. Some of the most incredible healing, we believe that warriors healing warriors. Here, some of the most incredible healing happens out around that fire pit. And I asked them, I said, "Hey, can I, is it cool if I go sit by the fire pit and talk to the guys?" I remember Tom just kind of looked at me and looked over at Josh and goes, "I told you." That's where I want to be, and going and talking to the Warriors. And what sealed it for me is got to spend time with the Warriors and here at Warriors Heart. And I went back to Oklahoma City because I was already on the hook. I went back to Oklahoma City, and what we used to do with my previous organization is every Friday morning, we would have a different staff member come and tell their story. It'd keep you in a rotation. That way they hear reality of the clients would hear reality of it. And so it was my turn that next Friday morning. I was already on the calendar. So I'd go out to the ranch facility, and I'm telling my story and talking about it. And in that environment, when I'm talking to a civilian treatment center, I mentioned military, but I don't spend a ton of time talking about it. I present and share what they're going to relate to, what they're going to be able to identify with. But afterward, there's one active duty cat and 3 veterans. So there's 4 warriors out there at the time. And afterward, they come up and they're like, "Hey, can we talk to you for a little bit?" And we went over to the side group room, and we spent the next hour talking about the post-traumatic stress, talking about life after service and all that. And I walked out of that, and I was like, "Yep, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing." and this is where I belong. And so it's scary, right? Any new change is scary. I go through the old, we're never cured of alcoholism. And so we still have those alcoholic thoughts. I come here and I'm like, oh man, are they going to like me? Am I going to be able to build strong new relationships with them? Am I going to have friends? All that stuff that like I know is not true, but still creeps into my mind that I've got to inventory and be honest about. And so to have a place and be able to participate and contribute to an organization in a place, and this isn't a shameless plug of Warrior's Heart, it's just passionately how I feel in the stage of life I'm in right now, is to have an organization that's built by warriors, for warriors, and to be able to join that team and contribute to that is not something that I would get anywhere else. It's an incredible organization, and I'm here to tell you, and 100%, I always have to acknowledge, right, that my journey, the victories I have in my life are not mine to claim. Mm-hmm. Everything I have that's good in my life should be stamped property of God, sponsorship, and the 12-step program I work today. Because everything I have in my life is because of the recovery I work today. My marriage, my wife's 15 years sober, right? She's an incredible member of her home group and her fellowship. Everything we do in our recovery programs, we do separately. She has a separate home group. I have a separate home group. We do all this stuff because it strengthens who we are together of what we do separately. And it's the same way with my work life, right? Like I am who I am and the opportunities I get today because of the program of recovery that I work. And so to bring that here, you asked me, what was that journey like? How did I get to here? I got out of the fucking way. My life is pretty incredible as long as I stay out of it.
Right. Yeah, because this is not something that we could have dreamed of.
I couldn't have created this. It's
no,
possible.
This never entered my possible world when I was searching for that next purpose.
If I had sat and made a list, and I remember somebody telling me this one time when I was new in recovery, and I was like, oh my God, shut up. But if I had sat and made a list when I was coming out of that treatment center at 109 days sober of where I wanted to be in 1, 3, 5, 10 years, the life I have today, I would never have made that list.
No.
Right?
No.
I'd have sold myself short. And so by staying out of the way, doing what's right in front of me, participating, being of service, going in to be part of instead of the guy I used to be, right, is why I have the life I have today.
Absolutely. And I draw a lot of comparisons from your story with my own story, coming here to Warrior's Heart to start my recovery journey, being passionate about this place, starting off in admissions, now working in business development, and I am passionate about it. So I'm learning a lot from you, but I'm also drawing a lot of the correlations. And some of the same stumbling blocks, get a lot of us in recovery, self-confidence, fear of failure, fear of change. And those are things that I wrestle with, but the culture here helps you to overcome that. Yeah. Right? The personal development, the growth, the way that we start our days with the morning meetings, the whiffles, everything else, the heavy emphasis on encouragement and being the best version of yourself possible is what keeps me at this place. Because I still don't know how it's happening in my life, but it's happening. Yeah. All the promises coming true, and I love that part of it.
I've never seen an organization that cares so much about the personal and professional development of their team.
Neither have I. And we do these book studies, and in the morning briefing, we go over some of those things. The stage 1 organization, the stage 2 organization. That's currently what we're talking about in morning briefings, right? So there is a heavy emphasis on it because we want this place to succeed, and we want it to succeed for ourselves, right? Because I know the life that I had versus the life that I have now. Trust me, I want this.
Yeah,
I want this
for sure.
Right? On our website, we talk about, on our website, we have our biographies, if you will, of the staff members and, our background, but also my why, the reason why we do these things. What is yours?
My why is the next warrior.
Yeah. What does that mean to you, the next warrior?
So I'm not that many years off of sitting in my car in the VA parking lot, drinking and bouncing a pistol off my temple. Mm-hmm. I know what it's like to be there.
Yeah.
It's the most alone I've ever felt in my life. So that next warrior that comes through the gate, that calls on the phone, that reaches out for help, that is scared to death, that feels completely and totally alone. For me to have the opportunity to share my experience with them, to let them know it's okay to not be okay, and to reach back and pull them out of that, give them a hand up, is the greatest experience and greatest joy I'll ever have in my life. So my why is that still suffering, that next warrior who's sitting there wishing they were dead and wishing they weren't alive and feeling completely broken and alone.
You know, in law enforcement, when we get into law enforcement, you know, some of our friends will say, you know, what's your deal? You going to try to save the world? No, I'm just going to make a difference in one person at a time, right? And then in my life, when I've lost that, searching for that purpose, you know, I found it again, you know, helping other warriors get the treatment, you know, even before I started working in admissions, being in the rooms of AA. People help me along the way, I'm going to help somebody else along the way. And that's the definition of a true warrior. You know, somebody that goes back into the fire to pull those out that are still burning, right? And help them get to that better life. But the light coming back on in somebody's eyes is something that's just indescribable. And to see it, you know, I reference one of our past interviewees, RJ, quite a bit. And I've had the pleasure of him and so many other guys, you know, just watching the life come back to him and seeing the laughter. I saw him again Tuesday night, and we were talking shit, you know, having a good time in the before meeting and after meeting. And just seeing the happiness and the joy is better than anything that law enforcement ever brought.
We have front row seats to the greatest show on earth.
Yeah. Absolutely. So what would you say to that person that's out there listening right now, wondering if he's ready to make that step and to reach out and get some help?
The first thing I tell them is it's okay.
Yeah.
Right. I've been there. It's okay to not be okay. Right. And that I know that phone weighs 1,000 pounds when you're thinking about picking it up. But if there's anything, my life is living proof. Your life is living proof. All the warriors walking around here are living proof that it's not forever and it does get better. It's possible, right? Recovery is real from the post-traumatic stress, from the traumatic brain injury, from the alcohol, from the drugs, from all of that, right? My biggest enemy is me. And there is a solution, and we're here to help you find that.
And if somebody were really listening to your story, what's the one thing that you hope they focus on the most?
Get out of your own way.
Yeah. You've said it numerous times, and it's 1,000% true. Yeah. I was chatting with somebody recently about coming back, and he is so in his way right now. He is his own stumbling block. I'm trying my best to help him make it through that, but I've been there. I've done it myself, you know. But for anybody that is, you know, thinking about asking for some help, there's plenty of ways. Our website, warriorsheart.com, you can reach out that way. We have social media pages where you can send us a message on Facebook. It will get answered. We will reach out to you. And, of course, you can reach out 855-610-1003. Our admissions advocates are waiting 7 days a week, 0700 to 2300 Central Standard Time daily. They're waiting to answer that phone. There's a variety of ways to reach out to us. So if you're asking for help, ready for help, you need the help, give us a call. Drew, I appreciate you being here, sharing your story with us, man, sharing your life journey with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Pleasure.
Yeah, it's going to be a good journey.
Yeah, it is. Trudging the road of happy destiny together.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
First thing that they said was welcome home.